All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest, most critical decisions you can make on AWS. We're talking about a choice that hits everything: your speed, your costs, your power. Getting this right is absolutely huge. So let's break it all down.
So this is the big question, isn't it? Serverless or containers? This is the classic showdown. You've got agility on one side and total control on the other. Are you trying to build something that's super fast and reacts to events? Or are you building a complex application that needs to be portable? The answer to that question is going to set your entire path.
So in this explainer, we're going to break down the three main players in this game. First, Lambda, our event-driven specialist. Then there is ECS, the AWS native workhorse. And finally, EKS, the Kubernetes powerhouse. After we meet them, we'll throw them into a head-to-head showdown and then give you a really simple framework to help you make the right call.
Okay, first up to the plate is AWS Lambda. I want you to think of Lambda as your fast, agile specialist. You know, it's not the right tool for every single job, but when you have the right task for it, oh man, it is unbelievably efficient. So what is it really? Well, Lambda is basically pure serverless computing. You just upload your code, and that's it. AWS handles literally everything else. All the servers, the scaling, the management. Your code just sits there quietly, waiting for something to happen. An event that tells it, okay, time to run.
And you can see right here where it absolutely shines. Lambda is perfect for stuff like processing an image the very instant it gets uploaded to S3, or firing off some quick logic for an API call, or even replacing those old, clunky cron jobs. You see the pattern, right? It's all about these short, sharp, immediate reactions to some kind of trigger.
And the benefits? They're fantastic. I mean, zero server management, auto-scaling that's just perfect, and you only pay for the milliseconds your code is actually running. But, and this is a really big but, it is not a silver bullet. You need to steer clear of it for any job that's going to run for more than 15 minutes. And you also have to be careful if your app can't handle a potential cold start. That's that tiny, one-time delay when a function has to spin up for the very first time. Now for our second contender, Amazon ECS, the Elastic Container Service. So if Lambda is our agile specialist, I want you to think of ECS as the reliable AWS native workhorse that's built to run your containerized apps. So ECS is basically AWS's own answer for running Docker containers. It's designed to make the whole process smooth and seamless. But the single most important thing you have to understand about ECS is that it immediately gives you a fundamental choice about how you want to run things. And here's that choice. On the one hand, you can run it on EC2 instances. This gives you total control. You pick the machine, you manage the network. Think of it as owning the car. But on the other hand, you've got Fargate. And Fargate is the serverless way. You just hand over your container and AWS does all the driving. You give up some control, yeah, but you get a ton of convenience back. This flexibility makes ECS a fantastic middle ground. It's perfect for when your microservices have just gotten a little too complex for Lambda, or if you're just trying to lift and shift an application you already have running in Docker and move it into the cloud. It's also a real powerhouse for things like CI/CD pipelines and APIs that need to stick around. The biggest advantage of ECS is how deeply it's integrated with the rest of AWS. I'm talking IAM, VPC, all of it. It feels like a totally natural part of the ecosystem, because it is. But if your team is already all in on Kubernetes, or if you know you need to run your app across different clouds, well, that's your cue to look at our final contender. And that brings us to the heavyweight champion of container orchestration, Amazon EKS, the Elastic Kubernetes Service. This is the industry standard powerhouse. So what is EKS exactly? Well, the key thing to grasp here is that it's real, certified Kubernetes. You're going to use all the same tools, all the same commands. The huge value that AWS brings to the table is that they manage the really complex part for you, what's called the control plane, which is kind of like the brain of the whole operation. They make sure it's always up, always reliable, and ready for you. And hey, sound familiar? Just like with ECS, you've got choices for how to run your containers. You can manage your own EC2 nodes, Or you can go serverless with Fargate pods. Yep, Fargate is an option here too. Or you can use something called Bottle Rocket, which is a special, super secure operating system from AWS that's built for one thing and one thing only, running containers.
The real power of EKS? It's portability. An app built for EKS can run on any Kubernetes cluster anywhere in the world. But that power comes at a price. EKS is way more complex to operate than ECS. I mean, you're not just running a container anymore. You're managing a whole ecosystem of pods and services and networking rules. The learning curve is, well, it's steep. All right, so we've met the contenders. Now it's time to bring them all together for the final showdown and really see how they stack up, side by side. This table really puts it all into perspective. Just look at that top row. For simple, event-driven tasks, Lambda is the perfect choice. Anything else is just total overkill. Now, for short microservices, Lambda is still excellent, but now you see ECS jumping into the game as a really solid choice. But watch what happens when we get to persistent, long-running workloads. Bam, Lambda is just not supported. It's out of the picture. Containers completely take over. And then look at the bottom 3 rows. This is where control and ecosystem really start to matter. If you need custom networking, you've got to have the control of EC2 or EKS. If you absolutely must use Kubernetes tools, well, the choice is made for you. And for that true run-it-anywhere portability across clouds, EKS is the only one standing. So how do you take all this information and actually make a decision in the real world? Let's boil this all down into a super simple, actionable framework. Here you go. This is your cheat sheet. Step 1, default to Lambda. Just start there. If your app is event-driven or it's a simple microservice, it is the fastest, simplest path forward. Step 2, if Lambda doesn't quite fit, but you're already comfortable with Docker and you want simplicity, choose ECS with Fargate. It's the sweet spot. And step 3, only, and I mean only, move to EKS if you have a very specific, hard requirement for Kubernetes, like you need that portability or there's a specific tool you have to use. Don't take on the complexity of EKS unless you absolutely need its power. In the end, it all just boils down to this one fundamental trade-off. If you remember only one thing from this whole explainer, please make it this. You choose serverless when you need speed and simplicity. You choose containers when you need control and portability. And that brings us to the end. But it also points to a pretty fascinating future, doesn't it? I mean, you see services like Fargate already blurring these lines. So the question becomes, is that trend going to continue? Are we going to get to a point one day where we get the total control of containers, but with the zero-effort simplicity of serverless? Now, that's something to think about as you build whatever's next. Thanks for watching.